everybody, welcome to episode number, I believe this is 7. I've got Tony Nikolic here from AFL Solicitors. Before we get into it, I just want to do a quick pre-warned message. We will be discussing COVID, we will be discussing lockdowns, and we'll be getting into other matters. If you have any type of issue with this, please, viewer discernment is required, so please change the channel, go listen to something else, or if you'd like to learn a little bit and just come with us along the ride, please join on in. Tony, welcome. Really, I said to you outside, and I say to you again, welcome, because I'm a big fan of yours. I've been following you since, like I said, outside, since the letter of 7th of July, 2021. And that's when I said, okay, there's a little bit of logic to this madness that's going on around here. But I did not expect what was going to be happening over the next couple of years. From that point, I had no idea what was going to happen. But we made it through. And I just want to go through today. I just want to go through a bit of that and discuss who you are, what you've done, because we're still going, you're still fighting cases. There's other issues that are coming up now, not just COVID related. You got digital ID bills and things like that. So it's never ending.
Absolutely. It's
never ending. So what I would like to know is just take it away a bit, just give us a bit of your background.
Sure.
And actually, before we get to that, can you please give me one fond childhood memory of yours?
One fond childhood memory. I think I loved my sports.
Yeah.
I love my sports. And I remember I actually grew up in Hurstville.
Oh, yeah, in Hurstville. I grew up in Hurstville too, man.
Oh, did you?
I went to Hurstville Public.
Okay, I went to Hurstville Boys.
Yeah, next door.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up in Hurstville.
Yeah.
And I remember like St. George Rugby Union and all them used to play at Hurstville Oval.
Yep.
I didn't live far from Hurstville Oval. And I remember they used to play rugby league and the rugby union. So I used to see, Mark Eller and Steve Eller. That was when I was growing up. They were great stars. Campese, I used to see running around and all that. But I remember we used to go down there and watch them on Sunday afternoons. And we used to run on the pitch after the game and we'd look for their studs because they had the screw-in studs. Oh. And that for us was so cool. It was, I've got a stud, man. And look, that was like finding a nugget of gold for us.
Yeah, of course, man.
And I still reflect on that. And, at that time, we were all young and, you had, people from Greek, we were Greek friends and Croatians and Serbians, Albanians. They were all there. It was a big melting pot of people. And we all still good mates to this day. Some of them are law partners. Some are, labourers. Some are, doing different things, engineers. We've all moved on in life, married and all that, but we all still talk about those days and it's great. So that's a fond memory that I still reflect on.
That's amazing, man. If we can finish the podcast, that's great. No, honestly, because do you actually have any of those studs now?
No. I look back at it and go, why didn't I? You sometimes you grab something in life and it just goes and you think, why didn't I hold it? Even records from the 70s and the 60s and things that I wasn't alive. Well, I grew up as a young kid in the 70s.
Yep.
But that type of music, the record, the vinyls. And I remember my mum getting, just when I got married, you don't need these anymore. Yeah. And God rest her soul where she is. But, and they're gone. But now I look back and I say, I wish I had them. So
one thing is I remember we had this one massive box of all these blues CDs, classical music CDs. And me and my mum were looking at it one day. And we're like, we've got so much stuff. We just probably give this away to charity. And now we're just kicking ourselves going, fuck, there was actually some good music in there. Like, seriously, we should have kept it.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So honestly, that shows that you're just someone that hasn't lost your roots. And you still fond memories and you still keep in touch to this day.
Yes.
So that also comes into play of when you go on a bat in for all of Australia and all the people that wanted to during these times, during the lockdown. So anyways, we'll get to that. So the next thing is, so you're of Serbian heritage.
Well, yeah, it's a very interesting, that's another very interesting part. Cause
please tell me.
my parents, and I'm sure yours, they grew up in Yugoslavia. And I actually wrote an honours thesis on that at university, and I wrote about the breakup of Yugoslavia.
Okay.
Because to me, the breakup of the former Republic of Yugoslavia was a very powerful country.
Yes.
And I was listening to a podcast the other day. I don't think it was Joe Rogan. I think it was someone else. But they had a basketball player, and they were talking about how the Balkans was really big and strong at one point. And, you know, had it still been that way now, it'd be a very different thing.
It'd be a massive dynamic.
Absolutely. And so, you know, you had basketball players coming from all the Balkans coming together to play. And that to me was very interesting because our parents had national service. So they all had to. Well, I'm assuming your father too.
My dad did, yeah. He's Macedonian, so he had to go. He went into the Navy.
There you go. Yeah, and my dad went into the army, and he served in Croatia.
Yes. My dad's boat was going around. They went around Croatia and whatnot. Yeah, everyone was always going around to different places.
They were going around.
Yes.
In terms of ethnicity, my parents are actually Albanian. Grew up in Crna Gora.
Really?
In Montenegro.
Wow.
That's it. My best man is Serbian. One of my closest mates is Croatian. If we remember that
I gotcha.
If we remember that one show, The Wog Boy, and Tony the Yugoslav.
Yeah, fucking.
What does he say? My dad's Croatian, my mum's Serbian.
Yeah, I want to kill myself.
Fucking.
Fuck, it's a killing you'll be no fucking problem. Fucking, I love that movie.
But you know, what I'm trying to get at is, you know, their houses are in Crna Gora.
Yeah.
That's where my parents, and so their passports are Crna Gora, and so obviously that, but in heritage, Albanian.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, through that people intermarry, you know, so, and that's the Balkans for you.
It's all the same people, mate.
Exactly.
It's all the same people and all.
It's the Balkans.
And they're killing each other and fighting and not talking to each other for
That's
whatever
what I
reasons.
wrote about. That's what I wrote about. And very interesting point you raised there. One of the things, it's all political perception.
Yeah, okay.
That, you know, because someone flicks a switch, all of a sudden, you don't hate each other. Like I said, my best man is Serbian. My best mate is Croatian. Technically, I'm like, you know, Albanian. I'm Albanian roots, this and that. Technically, we should all be arguing. We can all sit down and look, I was at a really big Serbian wedding lately.
Yeah.
It just only 2 months ago. Beautiful. This is how it's supposed to be.
Of course it is.
And it gives me sort of goosebumps because I remember my childhood. This is how it was.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand, so that's why I wrote about it.
You know, I've never had an issue. I remember when I was in primary school, I had this one really good friend. He was Bosnian. And then one day he just decided to stop talking to me. I was like, what the hell? Man, what's going on? Why is this happening? And he turns around, and after I kept on pursuing to find out, and he goes to me, I can't talk to you because you're Serbian. I was like, I didn't know what that meant. I think I was in year 5. So I'm like 8, 9 years old, whatever it was. And then I go home crying, and I was like, what's going on? Yeah. And I told her the story, and she's like, she blows up. You get the old school telephone, calls the number, calls her. Like, what the hell's going on? What's your... And then his mum's like, what the hell are you doing? So who knows where they were going and what they were learning. And I'm just like, that's just, that shouldn't be happening. But
it shouldn't have been. And look, if anything, it's something very similar to what's happened here, is where we had that political influence separating and dividing. And what I was writing about was political manipulation.
Yeah, okay.
And that's why really quickly I identified what was happening here, but not just that. When I say here, in terms of the COVID stuff.
Yeah, I got you, definitely.
And I could see the language, and it was the language that I had been studying many years earlier. And in addition to that, I also wrote a book chapter on pharmaceutical frauds and false claims. Yes. So
whistleblower case.
Yes, yeah. So that's where obviously I put a lot of that together, and I used to work with the Australian Institute of Criminology doing police inside New South Wales police in service. So it was about drug intelligence and things like that, building patterns and shapes. I wasn't a police officer, I'd just say that, but I worked very closely with them. So
extensive knowledge. Knowledge.
Yeah, so to me, I could see what was to me. Yeah, it's like an engineer. I can look at a bridge or something, and I'll say bridge, and you'll go, hang on. I see, if you're in civil engineering.
I am, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I deal with bridges.
There you go.
But I still say bridge when I see one.
But that sense of construction, you'll see things and I don't see them. And I guess it's, you know, it's a perspective of experience.
And we also know how everything got to that stage, who's involved where, what's happening, why is this designed that way. So you can also see when things are happening there and involves law, you can start tracing it back and having a look. So that's why I trusted your opinion. And I was listening closely to what you were saying and we were supporting you along the lines there. But this is what I wanted was to meet you finally, which is happening, because I had a list at home. Who do I want to get on the podcast? Albanese is not one of them. You are, and a couple of other people as well, some other superstars, maybe Novak Djokovic one day.
Oh, I'd love to see him.
Yeah, I would love to as well. Just we won't have any steel bottles around. Fucking poor bastard. You know, so you went to school and whatnot, obviously. You went through all of that. So can you tell me, why did you want to become a lawyer?
Well, initially I was a criminologist, so that's what I graduated. As a criminologist. And before that, I was in telecommunications.
Okay.
Yeah, just going to uni and doing things like that.
Yeah.
And I used to work at a Serbian restaurant in Newtown, owned by...
Gorans? No, is it Gora?
No, I forget what it's called.
It's on the corner.
Is it? I think it is on. But it's got this nice little frontage there. I don't know. It's still a Balkan restaurant to this day.
Yeah. Is it right on the corner of this like little access street?
It's on the main road.
Yep.
But I think it might be on the corner.
I think, yeah. And it's got like the barbecue grills right in the... Yeah, that's the one. No, not Gorans is the butcher in Liverpool. Sorry. We're doing shout-outs to everyone there. Everyone's like, oh, we're mad at we've done it. Yeah, come in Liverpool. It's a good butcher there. I think it's like a Euro grill. I think it might be Euro Grill.
It might be, because I was there not long ago. They make the best chavapi and pliskavitz.
That's all good food, mate.
Oh my gosh,
it's good.
You know, it just brings back the memories of home. You know, and they got the cabbage salads and stuff.
So what were you doing there?
I was playing a gig down the road.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because you're a bassist.
Yeah, I'm a bass player. Yeah, so I regularly go. Actually, this Sunday I got a gig in Wombara Bowling Club, which is in between.
So what's your band called?
Committee Horse.
Yes, Committee Horse.
Committee Horse. And a committee horse is pretty well, it's just a metaphor to talk about, you know, you get a bunch of people, no one can agree, and everyone goes, so it's a committee of horses.
Fair enough, because I remember you'd be like hammering on Instagram, all these things, just talking about what's going on. Next clip, you're just like, dong, 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 just like, fuck, I need to vent. I need to let loose. And I'm like, what's going on here, bro? I'm like, want to see some breaking news. This guy's like, give me a moment. Yeah. So that was fun to watch.
But I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, because that is my vent.
Yeah, that's important.
That's my vent. That's my getaway.
Because I want to ask you, and you know what, this podcast is going to be, it doesn't matter. Let's just keep on talking. One thing is, and Peter Pham also was, he's a good mate of mine. He was episode number 1.
Yes. I
found out about him through LinkedIn.
Yes.
And then he ends up, I met him at a pizza shop some years later. So just 2 years ago. A couple of years ago now. Yes. And I'm looking at him like, this guy, I know this guy from somewhere.
Yes.
And then we're talking. I said to him, what do you do for work? He goes, I'm a lawyer. I go, blue suit, pinstripe, LinkedIn, COVID. And he's like, yeah. I was like, fucking, Mom, there's a superstar in the house. Bring the chef up, he come out. And she's like, whose son, who? Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like, what are the chances?
Yeah.
So that was, and he was episode number 1. And I was asking him the same question, which is, how did you feel going pretty much into court and fighting these cases, doing your job pretty much? But it's a little bit more than just doing your job, because it's a real fight it's a big fight on your hands. How did you mentally deal with it? Because there's a lot more than usual other cases. There's so much riding on this. You got not just yourself, your family, your clients. You have literally the whole of Australia's eyes on you.
Yeah.
And you have I'm going to say a minority wishing that you fall down. You know, against you, that, you know, but then you have other ones that are just like, please, we need help. Like someone just to help us so that we can be heard in our stance of saying, we don't actually feel comfortable doing this. We don't want to do this. Doesn't matter what the science is or anything. Put that aside for a moment. There was people there that didn't want to do something. and they were being put into a position. I'm not going to say they were forced. It was. You can say it's a type of force. There was no actual forced injections or forced vaccinations, but they were coerced and put into a position where they did not feel comfortable. Now, I think that's pretty fucking illegal. You know, it's pretty. If it's not that, it's pretty. It goes against the grain. Like, it's not good. So you have all these people that are now looking at you saying, "Please help us." So I'm sorry to put so much emphasis in this, but
No, that's okay.
How did you pretty much cope and deal with that?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I'll go back to the part about Peter Pham. Peter Pham, at the time, I was writing letters and things like that. See, I'd been writing them. The Brett Hazard letter, that came out almost like a year before some of the other letters that came out. It was just that one became more prominent because of what was happening. Peter Pham was, I think he was a lawyer, a junior lawyer at Legal Aid. And he was doing some other type of work, and he seen my letter and he contacted me. I think it was on LinkedIn. Okay. And he said, "I just want to say,
connecting people, mate."
He said, "Thank you. You know, I really love the letters you're writing. You're an inspiration." And since that time, I look at Peter and I've got a lot of respect for him, because he also, after a bit, jumped up and he started to take that baton.
Yeah.
And it gave me, that sense to look around beside me and say, I got someone with me.
Yeah, okay, good.
And now, he's fledged his own wings.
Yes.
And he's doing great stuff out there. And I still see Peter and we still contact each other from time to time, but not every day. Obviously, we're very busy.
Of course.
He's had a young baby girl.
Yes.
Congratulations to him and his wife. And I just think that, he's done his little bit. He's continuing to do it, which is really good to see. But when he contacted me on LinkedIn saying, "I really want to help, what can I do?" That gave me hope.
Yeah.
I felt on my own. That's the way I felt. But I also knew from my studies and my experience doing what I had done previously is that I didn't do it for myself. I knew that someone had to stand up, number one. Number two, I've never been shy of wanting to help. And I don't stand up to say, "Hey, look at me. I don't do that. What I did was I said, there's a lot of people out there who I can feel this energy, right, but they're just not wanting to. I've never been afraid to stand up and be myself.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to go out on my own.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to sit at home on my own.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, no, I'm not. I can talk to anyone. I can do anything. I can go out into a big group and I can sit with someone. I can walk into a crowded courthouse. I can walk into a courthouse with two people.
Okay.
I'll argue with a security," and I did this at Blacktown during the heart of the lockdowns, the hardest part of the lockdowns. The security at Blacktown local court didn't want to let me in because I didn't have a mask. And I had all the Maoris and New Zealanders and all them. They were out there. We had the military. Remember how the military were going around with the police?
Yes, I remember that.
And they were walking out, and I was out the front, and I wanted to get in, and the security guard saying, "You can't come in." I said, "I'm sorry, I've got an exemption, and there's nothing preventing me from doing my job to represent a client," because I had a client to represent. And the client was that young girl who was pepper sprayed at Seven Hills Mall.
Oh,
for not having a mask.
Yes, I remember that.
We won that case and we got costs. We got a cost against the police. That came a little bit later, but I was representing her on that day. And the registrar of the Blacktown court came out and said, "No, you got to listen to the security." I said, "No, I am not. I'm here to represent. There's no law preventing me from representing my client. I want you to walk in there and I want you to talk to the magistrate. I want him to know that I don't want my client to get a failure to appear today.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm ready, willing, and I'm able to do my job.
Yeah.
And I want to do my job, which is to represent my client."
Yeah.
And the security guard at the front desk saying, at the front near the thing saying, no, you need to wear it. I said, "I'm not putting on a mask. I'm not going to do it." The registrar came out again. I said, "Please go in there. I want to call the central office where the chief magistrates are. And I want to tell them what's happening here today, because this is a travesty. I don't need to. The law doesn't oblige me to do so, but you're stopping me from doing my job." The magistrate then got wind of it. God bless them. He said, I'll tell you what, when her name comes up in the list, I want Mr. Nikolic to come in here. He does his part of the case and he can walk out. He doesn't have to put on a mask. All I'm saying is if we all held our ground.
Yeah, I got you. If
we all held our ground and you fought for that right, okay, because you did have rights. And it wasn't a minority. There was more of us than we believed.
Yeah.
It was just the media.
The media was lying. We'll get into that as well.
The media manipulated the situation to make you feel
They
like
massaged it. They massaged it.
And so people felt that they were alone. You weren't. Yeah. You just had to hold strong.
I felt alone.
Push. Yeah.
I felt very alone.
Yeah.
I felt like maybe I'm the one that's made a wrong decision here. Mm-hmm. Maybe all this is okay. We're meant to be going this path, but I always had it deep down inside myself what I wanted to do, and I didn't feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. I remember when it first happened. I looked when Trump was about to shut down in China. When he was about to, he was closing down the borders, and I said, "Yeah, I'm not going to go down this path," because I also had my own health concerns. My family has a history of heart issues, so we're not going to go into that. But that everyone has a genuine concern. Everyone's allowed to. That's what we had Peter on here to say. What's our human rights? What are our rights as people? Like we have a right to choose whether you want to or not. And God bless anyone if you can choose something, you're happy to do it. Good. But when you're not happy, and you're saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Someone should listen and say, okay, wait a second. Why don't you want to do this? You know, what's going on here, and talk about it. So that was all lost in there, but also it was a very extravagant situation. Going back to the media massaging our perception, I remember I was on the couch at home watching TV. This big image comes up. I had my missus next to me. My mum's over there. Fireplace is going. No, I think I can't even remember. It doesn't matter. I'm trying to paint an image here, Tony. And what I see is this guy in a yellow T-shirt punching a horse in the head. And I'm shocked. I was about to do backflips because I believe we have a right to protest. I believe I fundamentally believe you can go out there like the French, protest everything, all right? Now, I saw that image and in my mind, like, fuck, this guy just punched it. That image. There was no way for you to say that didn't happen. Like, I was swearing, like, who is this person? Is he normal? What's going on? This is me. I'm like, I'm very open and going crazy. And my mum's like, don't be stupid. She goes to me, she says, don't be stupid. Yeah. And then she goes, just who knows what's happened? Don't be stupid. It doesn't even look that bad. I'm there with everything. Then I go on to Instagram and I see the actual full footage. And I go, you malakas. I'll say the term malaka. And you look at the full footage and you're like, nah, this is manipulation. And ever since that point, that's when I said to myself, you know what? I'm done trusting 100%. I never trusted the media 100%, but just watching these things, I'm not doing it anymore. And that's when I started to ask questions and go down a path of just reserving my judgment. And then poor bloke was arrested. As a result of that. And do you still keep in contact with him at all today? Was he doing obviously I don't know how you are with your clients, but how was he after that incident?
All right. So that was a peculiar type scenario where, as you said, the allegations had occurred that he had, and I was there that day myself. And I actually spoke on the town hall steps that day. And I didn't actually see that event. It was literally across the road, but I wasn't at that specific point of time when that event occurred. I was there, but maybe at another area when it was all happening. And when I seen that, I was actually called by Craig Kelly.
Yes.
Craig Kelly called me and said, hey, Tony, I've got one of my constituents, his mother's hysterical. Please, what can you do? And Craig Kelly knew that, if anything, there was one lawyer out there that was, at that time, remember I was on my own a lot of that time, there was no one else really doing this stuff, and no one even wanted to know about it because it was taboo.
And you were still out there with the people in the coalface. You were.
I was with them.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It didn't matter whether it was there or somewhere else. I wasn't like, and that's something that I get from our culture, which is to be with the people.
Yes.
We're a community-driven type thing. And I was always with the people, and I stand with the people, and I still stand with the people to this day. That's why I'm not afraid to be on my own or to go there. I'm not afraid to say something that's unpopular to some people. To other people, it's very popular, what I was saying. To some people, it wasn't. But they're all turning now. And they're all turning, and they're starting to...
There's a lot of stuff going on at the moment.
That's right.
A lot of throwing under the bus, distancing themselves.
Scapegoats.
Yes, God bless our...
But just on that one guy, if I could just say this, and when his mum called me, and there were a lot of people saying, oh, you know, I hope he gets jail. And he was put in jail.
He was.
And it was one of the saddest things that I've ever seen.
Yes.
And I could see this young guy who was put in jail, and some of the circumstances around what he encountered when he was in jail were diabolical. It shouldn't have happened in Australia. And just on the point of the media too, just for 1 second, they're not all bad.
Okay, yes.
And they were giving a lot of favourable...
Yes, fair enough. Fair point.
No, and I agree with you. Some were terrible.
No, but you got some. Not everyone was bad. Not everyone. You're right.
And I remember being interviewed, and I think it was Channel 7. There was a whole bunch of them. You still see the photo at the newspaper of me on the stairs. And the Channel 7 guy asked me a question, and they all looked at him because he was trying to set me up, and they pushed him out of the way. And they were the ladies from, you know, like Channel 9, Channel 10, and some of that stuff. And I got a lot of heart from that because that was the media standing up. They were maybe restrained too.
They were restrained. And a lot of people were restrained.
Exactly. They knew what they wanted, okay? Yeah. They knew. But this one guy, Christian his name is, towards the end, I've got to say one thing. He went to another lawyer right at the end. But we'd done all the deals by that point with the police and that. We had a little bit of a different tact.
That's okay.
I can't say.
No,
because that's between him. Anyway, once they leave, I let it go. But I will say one thing is that no one else wanted to help him. And I got in there, and I remember this is the heart of lockdown. The streets of Sydney had no one on there. There was no one on the streets of Sydney. And I was walking into Central Court on my own, and then I started getting barristers. And I've got to say a big thank you to the New South Wales Bar Association because I said, this is a big case. It's heavily political. It wasn't... Because when you looked at what was happening, he didn't punch that horse.
No, he did not.
He did not punch that horse. And I remember on the first day, I got up, and the magistrate didn't bring Christian to the court. And I said, he's got a right to be here to hear his case. Oh, we can get him on AVL. I said, no, I want him here. The Justice Health haven't signed the document because he hasn't done a PCR test. And I said, Your Honour, this is not right. He needs to be here. And then I had a crack at the prosecution. I said, what's going on? They said, this is nothing to do with us. It's got to do with Justice Health.
Yeah. And
so there was this big blame game going on. And I said, Your Honour, next time I come, we expect to see him here. I said, this is a travesty against human rights. This is not the Australia. And literally this is kind of, I'm sure the transcripts are out there. I might be off with my words a little bit.
That's okay.
But this is what was happening at the time. Then I came back again the next week and I said, and again, they didn't bring him. He's not doing his PCR. And I said, where does it say he must do a PCR? Now I started to go to the New South Wales Bar Association. I said, I want a senior counsel and I would like to see a junior counsel as well appointed pro bono. I was working pro bono for free. Yes. And they allocated a senior counsel and a junior counsel to help me fight this case, high profile. And they allocated these two senior barristers, came and assisted me, Chris O'Donnell and Parissa Hart with the junior, and they came and they also assisted. So we've got to thank the New South Wales Bar Association because they've got this remarkable pro bono program and they do help in certain cases. It was a very unpopular case, as you would know.
It was extremely unpopular.
Unpopular. Everyone said, jail him, he should go for ages. He didn't punch the horse. I believed in him. And then when I produced that evidence to the senior counsels, they didn't at first. I've got to say that. They didn't. They said, oh, he punched. I said, no, look, here it is. Let's slow it down. Let's get this. Let's do that. And we showed him and bang, we walked in there and within, I think, 11 days, and I put on application after application after. I just kept bringing the matter back before the courts. And I did 120 or 130 page affidavit in a local court matter.
130 pages?
Yeah, little affidavit, and I kept attaching. I was going to Parkleigh Prison every day to say, I want to see my client. They said no. I said, no, I want to see my client. That was me showing evidence that I'm trying to get to my client, they're not letting me.
Yeah.
You couldn't get access to a lawyer. That then also breached the Mandela principles of people in custody, the United Nations. That's where I was going. And that's the United Nations instrument that I used in my affidavit. I said, this is what happened to Nelson Mandela. I said, I think it was Article 3. It's been changed now, by the way, believe it or not.
So what, you don't have a right to a lawyer, or what's the
Well, that part's sort of removed, and it's very interesting. And I don't know where it's come, but I certainly know when we were doing the case, that's one of the articles. You've got a right to talk to your family. You've got a right to access a lawyer, amongst all these other things. Well, he couldn't access his lawyer, and that was a big part. And then we had Magistrate Farnham on the date of the bail, and she made some very clear observations saying, this has hit the media. I've looked at the footage. I suggest you talk to these guys. I want to grant bail, basically, in a nutshell. I want to grant bail. Do you want to give it to the DPP to charge? They said, no, the DPP ain't going to charge. So that was a big indication to us that the DPP reviewed the file and said, this isn't a winner.
No, of course not.
You leave it with the police. And that's why I went after the police. But then right at that last second, he veered off. And
he's allowed to.
He's can, allowed to. And whatever deal he got, he got.
And God bless you, mate, wherever you are. I'm sorry I had that thought about you.
Yeah.
I know that certainly changed my mind, because actually, was that a photo, or was that a video? Then
it was a video. It was a video that had been captured at a certain point in time, and we were drilling into that point because there was a manipulation.
So all I'm going to say is that wasn't a photo. I believe that to be a photo, because I was like, that's a photo. It's pretty clear there, but it was a video. There's a before, they take the snip, and there's an after. There's a whole scene, and that's the thing that pissed me off.
Yeah.
You know, and that's deception. Anyways, all the best to you people that think
exactly
over
there.
there.
Well, I hope he goes well, and I still wish him well. Yeah.
Of course.
Absolutely.
But that was one of the biggest things for me. It's like now we're bashing horses.
The principle was, as we were mentioning a moment ago, is you got to, one of my big sayings is hold the line. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Hashtag hold the line. Yes.
Hashtag hold the line, and that's done on purpose because, and that's what I kept saying. And it is frustrating because if you're on the other side, and being charged, and people are, all you can do is hold the line. If you just say, "Oh, just plead me guilty and let me go," that's exactly why they do that. It's the pressure that makes people fold.
It is the pressure. It's the pressure in many different cases. So basically, another thing that I'm genuinely interested in is how many other law groups and law firms were involved within all these cases, because there was a big one, Kassam versus Hazard. It seemed to fail on paper, but we know deep down that that's just, you keep on chipping away and eventually falls apart. You had great barristers in there. I think it was Peter King was one of them.
Yeah, Peter King. Yeah.
Fantastic. I was at times listening to his arguments there. To be honest, I don't think I could be a lawyer or maybe even a barrister. These guys get into such intellectual debates. I'm lost. I can't even talk like they do. And they're having debates about seatbelts. I'm like, oh, man. I'll be like, what? Yeah. So basically when you started going further and further, did you actively seek, because when you first started, you probably felt, you actually said before you were by yourself, Peter pops up. How did you actively go to seek to find, find other lawyers to come in play? Did they find you? Was there many out there, or was it just pretty much just your law firm?
It was pretty much our law firm.
Yeah.
That's really how it was. And I went to other barristers, very, very prominent barristers, and I went to former, and I'll say something that a lot of people don't know about this case, but we went to other barristers, and they're very prominent barristers, and they said no. It was like, I don't want to be
involved.
I think it wasn't because they didn't want to be involved. I actually think it was that, that perception of not wanting to be seen to be upsetting, whereas I'm totally different.
Yeah.
I will bring you my opinion and I will call it out. I'll call it out. I'll say, I don't like that on principle. I'm not here throwing petrol bombs. I'm not here overturning cars. I'm saying there's something wrong. I want to call it out. And that's what I did. And that's all I wanted of these barristers and that to come out. Now, Peter King was, 5, 6, 7 down the track of the people that we wanted to select. And he said, yes, I'll do it. And because we needed someone, who had experience and knew kind of what was happening. And I'll be honest with you, and no disrespect to him, he wasn't our first choice. He was 6, 7, 8 down the track, something like that. We were the only law firm. But one thing that appealed to me, and what a lot of people don't know about this case, I was being called by retired judges in the background. We want you to get up, show us your documents. How can we help? This is what a lot of people don't realise. A lot of people think it was just us and Peter King.
Wow.
I was being called in the background by former judges, former registrars, very experienced DPP, former prosecutors from different states calling me, saying, we're on your team. Let's get something going. And let's put it like this. We were doing something, we were like Nostradamus. We were like Nostradamus, and I'll tell you why we were like Nostradamus. We knew something was wrong. We gave the evidence, and the evidence now, it was not only true then, it's more true now.
Yes.
Because when we were doing it, there was like 70 or 80 deaths, 72 or 73 deaths.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Now, they've clocked them at 780. That's what I say is the reportable version, and I've got my opinion on that. And that is what we call the dark figure of those statistics. But yeah, we had that. But then I had all these other people who came on, and they're going, I don't want money. We don't want money, they said. We just want to help because there's something wrong going on here. There's something wrong. And so the evidence we put in Kassam, like I said, it's not only wasn't true then, it's much truer now. Much truer now. What were the points that we raised? It didn't stop transmission, didn't confer immunity. Very simple points. Didn't stop transmission, didn't confer immunity, it didn't stop the hospitalisations, it didn't stop the deaths. And we put the statistics and the evidence there to back it. We had a Dr. Brian Tyson who put on evidence from the United States. He had treated 5,996, let's call it 6,000 people, frontline trauma in the United States. He's from San Diego. And he said out of all these people, 3,000, let's call it down the line, and just for the sake of this, 3,000 were vaccinated, 3,000 were unvaccinated. He saved all their lives except for 4. 4 didn't live because they were seriously advanced in their state. They were elderly, they had complications. Okay. We already knew this was the case. The common flu does this to people every year.
Yes.
But what he said was the vaccine ain't doing anything to stop it. We then got the expert from New South Wales, Professor McCartney. We called her to the stand. Yes. What we found in her resume is that for the 18 months preceding the case, she had received $65 million in research grants, vaccine-related research grants. Okay?
A lot of money.
A lot of that's an obscene level of that's an obscene
for funding.
Yes, and there's nothing stopping research funding. Research is how we get places.
Research is important,
but to close out everything else and not to leave anything else. But the key factor here is this: is Brian Tyson was talking about Ivermectin early on.
Yes,
and the protocols about how he was treating those 6,000 patients, and they all lived.
Yeah,
and we put that protocol before the court, and the courts didn't believe us. But Professor McCartney, who was working out at Westmead at the time, she was using Ivermectin for parasites and things like that. But then when Peter King said, so how many patients have you treated? She said, I've never treated a COVID patient. But we put in Peter McCullough, we put in Brian Tyson, we had Jay Bhattacharya, we had Christine Parks, we had Gert van der Bosch, we had all these experts.
Gert van der Bosch was a big one.
Yes. We had Professor Barodi, we had Professor Brighthope, we had really good doctors, and they were professors and doctors who were all treating in this area. And that was the travesty of this case, is that there was an opportunity to save lives. We didn't care if you took the vaccine. That wasn't our case. Our case was mandates, number one, why force it upon the people, and allow people to explore treatments. As a part of the judgment, you'll actually see Justice Beach Jones, who now sits on the High Court. Congratulations to him.
Yes.
But he actually says, oh, and Mr. Nikolic talks about Ivermectin. In other words, it's like, Ivermectin. No, we're right, because Ivermectin on a daily basis is now still being used to treat it. There were so many studies at the time, there were 20 studies positive of Ivermectin. They were saying there wasn't any, but there was. And this is part of the case of Kassam. But the biggest part about Kassam is this, is that we were right. We were right. and it's actually been vindicated, and you see it now on a daily basis.
You see it on a daily basis, yes.
18 months later, the European Parliament, Robert Roos, what did he say? He had the Pfizer person come out and say, we acknowledge this need to stop
I remember
transmission.
that.
Well, we said that 18 months earlier.
Yeah.
We already knew it 18 months earlier.
I enjoy watching Robert Roos all the time on Twitter and Telegram. He's doing a great job over there. And I actually didn't mind just watching you guys present your case and, Justice Speech Jones, as much as he was going against it, I have to admit sometimes it's very interesting. I have to commend just the logic that people apply to some stuff, and that's what it comes down to. But ultimately, I think the judgment came down to no one was being forced. Yeah, there was no actual mandates. Yeah,
it was, again...
You had a right to choose. Actually, I believe it was you had a right to choose whether you did. No one was forcibly injecting. Yeah. So...
Well, it's a very interesting logic that I still can't follow, and I always say that even if you put me in a pub and there was 62, I could drink 62 schooners. I can't, right? Yeah, I can't drink 62.
Maybe we go after. We have a look.
But the issue really there was it basically the logic was this: is that you're not being coerced, but if you don't take it, you can't remember Western Sydney, you can't come out of your 5 kilometre radius unless you do get vaccinated. What happens if you can't get out of your 5 kilometre radius? A lot of people in Western Sydney travel an hour and a half to get to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
If I want to feed my family, I need to travel beyond 5 kilometres. And this was the issue. This was the issue. So we didn't buy. I still don't buy it, and I respect the decision.
You have to.
We have to. But I still don't buy it. I don't think anyone buys it. And I'll tell you one thing. I recall, and it wasn't that long ago, I was at the Supreme Court on another case, completely different case. And I walked into the cafe, and there was a former registrar there, of the court registrar.
Yep.
And I sat down just talking to him. And they said that decision was BS. We were coerced.
Yeah.
We were coerced, and we're going to do everything we can to correct the record, because what happened there was wrong. We should never have been coerced to take this injection. It does not work. I've had the flu and COVID many times. I've had 3 shots, and I'm getting COVID more than my mates who haven't got it.
Yeah.
And this is what we were saying to people.
Yes.
So we spent billions of dollars locking down a country.
Yep.
We spent billions of dollars stopping people getting treatment in other areas. We spent billions of dollars closing down potential treatments that could have saved people's lives. And what for? And what for? People still died.
Yeah.
Perhaps and arguably in greater numbers, because the vaccine now with the gene therapy is actually doing more damage.
Well, that's what they're coming out with. And I don't get into that debate with anybody. I don't discuss that too much with people at all. I just go about my own business. But when I have opportunities like this to pick your brain and discuss this about what's happened, I'm all for it.
It's not a conspiracy, by the way, because if you read my letter, I actually got it early on.
Yep.
We did an FOI, and a Freedom of Information on the TGA, and it said we haven't done any genotoxicity studies.
Yeah.
We haven't done any carcinogenicity studies, and we haven't done any studies on fertility. And this is what we were saying to her. How dare you come out and say it's safe and effective? You cannot say that. Your own documents say you haven't tested it. You cannot say it's safe. It's a lie. It's an outright lie. And people can't say it's a conspiracy, because I've given you the document from the Therapeutic Goods Administration of Australia, and that actually says we didn't do the studies. And since then, the contracts have come out from around the world. And
have the contracts actually come out?
Not in Australia. I've been fighting them for 2 years now on that. There's 19 different contracts, believe it, for 3 vaccines.
19 different contracts?
Variations, There's no one knows this. Well, now you do.
Oh, I do now. And whoever subscribes, please,
So you're getting some pretty exclusive stuff here.
Thank you, Tony.
And those variations, they're what they've done is, if you look at the ones that have been produced from around the world, like Brazil, Portugal, Albania, and some of those countries, they were leaked. Yeah,
they were. I remember getting that Eden or whatever it was
South
on Twitter.
Africa,
They were, and I was reading through those ones as well.
So if you actually read some of those clauses, and I was referring to the South Africa one, because that's the most recent one that's been reduced, it doesn't make any representations about safe or effective. No. It says we cannot guarantee that people won't be harmed. So this is why I'm pressing for our ones, because if it is very similar at the start saying that, where are they getting safe and effective? Where do they get safe and effective from?
Yeah, that word safe and effective was said so many times.
If that's the case, then we've literally been lied to. That's why they're holding it. And now what people don't realise, in 2021, I actually did a petition and I got 102,614 signatures to release the contracts.
Yeah, okay.
That was the Parliament, the Australian Parliament. And then Greg Hunt, the Health Minister at the time, writes me a letter and he says, and I said, look, I want the contracts. And he said, oh, look, you got to go to the Department of Health, but if they don't give it to you, you can take it to NCAT or AAT, Australian Administrative Appeals Tribunal.
Okay.
And so I said, okay. So we've tried that, by the way.
Yep.
And they're still stonewalling us, and it's been this long, and we're still not getting those contracts. That is a travesty in itself because it's the Australian taxpayer who pays for those contracts. Exactly right. So when they say the government invested billions, it's not government money. It never has been, money. Never will be.
It's taxpayer money.
Exactly right. So when you go to work, when I go to work, when your staff go to work, if I can call you that. Nick, is it Nick?
This is an exclusive.
Nick.
Nick is my, yes, we got it. We're going to take a snip. You're my staff.
Sorry about that.
No, this is his studio. I come here because
it's a beautiful
he's awesome
studio.
bloke.
I've got to say that. I've got to say that. Great setup, guys. But I'm sorry about that. But the issue is that when we pay our taxes, that's where it goes.
Yeah.
But we have a right to understand what it is. It's called transparency, okay? So governments hold your money on trust. They're stewards, okay?
Yeah.
So you got a kid. Your kid says, Dad, I want to buy a donut. They don't have your PIN number to your accounts.
You got to buy from.
You hold that on trust for that kid so they can be educated. This is what the government does, just on a larger scale.
Yeah, on a much larger scale.
They can't say it's commercial in confidence. How can it be commercial in confidence if they're injecting it into you? You know what I mean? I can appreciate they may want to say that, this sequence will hold that from you. But we still want to know the basic parts of that contract, which is, did they say it was safe and effective? Did they make any representations as to the safety? Did they make any representations as to the effectiveness? Because if they haven't, in the media, the musicians, the people on radio stations, and all those public figures, and the CHOs, or chief health officers, all came out, and epidemiologists for the the government all came out and said safe and effective. Where did they get that from? Did they make it up?
Well, yeah, where'd that come from? Where's the first place that it came from?
That's why all this is being.
We got to go ask. Did the pharmaceutical companies, were they the ones that were saying that? So where you're right in saying that. You got to go down the line to who was the first person to say that, who made that representation, and then that's where it continued from. But I hope you find it. Good luck to you.
We're hunting.
Good. You don't look like someone that's going to give up or stop,
No.
And you haven't stopped. So there's still things going on in the background because, like, I'm imagining, and I can see it, that most of Australia's just forgotten and moved on. Where there's a financial crisis going on, inflation's through the roof. There's other issues. No one thinks about what happened a couple of years ago, but most of us that were ridiculed, we won't forget.
No,
I won't forget. That's why I'm doing this on my podcast at the moment. I'm not forgetting, and that's why I want to discuss it. But most of Australia has moved on, and they've got their own issues. And all right, I understand that. But the thing is, so what's currently there's still a battle going on. There's still things going on in regards to it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still a lot. And as a matter of fact, on the way here, I don't know if you're familiar with John Larder. He was the paramedic.
Yes, John. I know. Yes,
John Larder,
the
Graham
paramedic,
Hood and all these guys. But John Larder was the paramedic who stepped up real early too. Just after Kassam, you had the Larder case against Hazard. And John Larder and I, we're very close mates. Actually, his brother-in-law works for me. He's Stephen Kelly. He worked 28 years as a police sergeant in the coroner's office.
Oh, really?
Phenomenal criminal lawyer. Phenomenal. And, so a part of my business, we've got the criminal law division family. We've got different divisions, wills and estates, and all. Anyway, I'm giving myself a plug here, but
that's all right. No, that's
but
okay.
He's a phenomenal criminal lawyer. But John Larder, we did a case for him in the industrial courts, or the tribunal. Sorry, when COVID was going on, and that was this time last year. So on May the 19th of 2023, we appeared because he was fired as a paramedic for his views, this and that. So we took him into the tribunal. That was on May the 19th last year. Today we received a letter, and this is something a lot of people don't know, and this is today. So on my way here, I stopped and read an email, and in that email, it came from the lawyers from New South Wales Health saying on May the 16th, so in 2 days' time, we're dropping the mandates for health workers in New South Wales, and we're going to change the policy. So the policy of 2021 will now be rescinded, and there's no longer a mandate. It's going to be a recommended use only, which is what we've been arguing from day one. Well, you know what that means? You've got the choice. This is what Kassam was about.
Yeah.
We're coming to it now because they've finally realised that the damn walls have all broken down. Not only have they broken down, you're starting to see members of the community and anyone that follows AFL Solicitors on Instagram, you'll see how many statements were being made that were untrue.
Yeah.
They were blatantly untrue. They weren't true. And they should have, as we said in Kassam, taken a precautionary approach, which was, we don't know if it's safe. We don't know if it's going to hurt people. We don't know if it's going to kill people. And they kept saying, but COVID's worse. Well, if COVID's worse, why are all the unvaccinated still alive? This is the question. We are the control group. That's why they ridiculed you.
You know, I've got to ask you a question. I listened to one of your podcasts doing a bit of research today, mind you, on the way here. I said, fuck it, maybe I'll just Google this guy's name and see what comes up. There was there placebos going around? Placebos for the...
Yeah, it's very important to realise that Greg Hunt, and I think it was the 23rd of February 2021, might be a couple of days out, he came out and he said this is the world's biggest clinical trial.
I remember that.
That was everyone's cue right there to say, you are a guinea pig. What he's saying, you're my guinea pig, and we're going to run it. And then you didn't see that for a long time in the media. And people missed that.
Yeah, I saw that. I remember that.
A lot of people talk, clinical trial. No, because a clinical trial means what? You're going to get active, you're going to inactive or inerts, which is a placebo. Yeah, and then you could get something else. But what we knew at the time, and I remember Scott Morrison and there's footage of this where he said, we're getting a batch from X, but you know what? Singapore's running low, so we're going to give them that. Portugal's going to send us a batch. Have you ever seen that game where you get 3 cups and there's a ball?
Yeah. Interesting.
Find the ball. In that ball, the ball represents the death batches. The death batches, and they're literally death batches because there's numbers that correlate to higher levels of death. Okay? And that's already been, we know this. We're not making it up. We know it. There are batches of these, especially when it came to Pfizer, there are certain batches that have been associated to harms and deaths more than others. Some are sweet, no worries, you know what I mean? So, and I know a lot of people that get these and they don't feel. My mate's a triathlete. He took 2 shots. He didn't want them, but he said, for me to train,
There's a lot of people that I know that don't have any issues as well. So that's why you're saying okay.
Yeah, and our case has always been, not that everyone's got it, but some people. That it's not everyone. Yeah.
But the main thing, so basically there were placebos. So we can, can you confirm?
Well, we can't confirm, but in a clinical trial, it's what they call a double blind, right?
Yeah, because what I was getting at was if there was placebos running around and you have someone that genuinely wanted protection and you're giving a placebo, that's a bit slack.
Oh, it's not slack, it's illegal.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, come on, bro. He wants protection and you're giving him a placebo.
That's malicious.
Yeah, fair enough.
Especially if you've just locked down a whole country saying if you don't get it, you've just lied to everyone that didn't get it.
I'm just trying to bring it down a level, but thank you very much to our resident lawyer here. My resident lawyer might need you. But that's what I'm just trying to get at is if someone wants protection and there's, a clinical trial going on and it's placebos, what the hell? So that's the part that I was getting at, which I was getting a little bit confused about, but fair enough. And I remember him saying that. And really the whole thing was just it's like the monkey with the fucking symbols just hitting it. That's,
Yeah. Well, those people technically should all be sacked. True. And the government should be paying them compensation because all those people that needed to be vaccinated and show their vaccine status or lose their job, right? So we're thinking outside the box here.
Yeah.
If you weren't vaccinated, if you were vaccinated with a placebo, technically you're not vaccinated.
Yeah, technically you're not. Yes.
No, you're not. You're just not vaccinated because it's a placebo. So if it's established that that's the case, then the government again lied.
I agree with you. And you know what? You just got to go in there, get that one bit of thread, and which has already happened, and the whole thing starts unraveling. And really, if you go and find out all of this information, anyone really goes deeper and finds out this is mind-boggling, you know. This is so. I'll gladly put my tinfoil hat on and walk around the streets. I don't even have any more alfoil because I always have to put it. I have to put it on. I'm known as a conspiracy theorist, but I like to ask questions, Tony. I'm allowed to ask questions. We're all allowed to ask questions and question and have a look at it and say, okay, how's this work? What's going on? Is this right for me? How do I feel about these things? Everyone is allowed to do that, and that I believe is a fundamental human right.
I'm with you 100% on that, and without that, we don't have a human or civil rights body here in Australia. I was very disappointed with our human rights and civil liberties. I'm a lawyer.
Yep.
My job is to challenge.
Of course.
Anything apart, like the journalist, your job is to question government. That is your job. Anything other than that, you become a public relations marketer for the government.
100%.
Don't call yourself a journalist. Call yourself something else. And I know journalists. And I know some really, really good ones, and they are absolutely amazing at what they do, but they were getting shut down.
I agree.
That's why we didn't see them.
A lot of people are protecting themselves as well for their jobs, and I can understand they've got families to feed. It's not an easy decision. No. It's not. There's a lot of people had families to feed, houses, mortgages. There was a lot going on, so I can understand that, and we're not here to ridicule anyone.
No, not at all. A lot of people had that hard choice, and bless you for saying that, because a lot of people were put up against the wall.
Of course, mate.
And it was like a firing squad type thing. Do as I say, or you're going to lose it. And people had families, and that's where that 5 kilometre, you're mandated, but you're not mandated.
I know.
It was just a word salad. And that word salad is what got people to do it. And I felt it was ridiculous for doing that. But in terms of civil rights and human rights, you must. See, the term conspiracy theory is another one that you can unpack even further, because that is a construct from the 1960s intelligence services. Okay? And the way you could discredit people, and this is what they did with the CIA and that.
Yes.
They actually came and they coined this term conspiracy.
Yep.
And this conspiracy turned into theory.
Yep.
Well, any criminal lawyer will tell you this, right? That, and we do cases like this all the time, that if you get, 1, 2, 3 people and they want to bring Ivermectin from India, for instance, okay? They wanted to bring, or it could be cocaine, or it could be anything, all right? But all these people are working towards a similar goal. That becomes a conspiracy. It's a theory until they're convicted. So it's all right to call it a conspiracy here, but not a conspiracy here. But the term conspiracy actually is coined to discredit people.
Yeah.
And so whenever anyone was coming up like this, they called you cookers, conspiracy theorists. But if we had a scorecard, it's conspiracy theorists 128, government nil.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. They pulled AstraZeneca as well.
Yep.
Okay.
That's another big call, that one. But we called it early.
Yes, I remember that. Definitely did. You made mention, I remember when you were talking about the Kassam versus Hazard case, and you were talking about, I was listening to a podcast or an interview that you did somewhere. There was a massive fucking band of people, a lot of his there, and always doing these weekly, nightly chats on Facebook Live, Instagram Live. I forgot half the people's names, but you know exactly the ones. Like there's Monica,
Monica Smith, Maria Z.
Maria Z, you had Monica Smith.
She's amazing, Maria Z. Yeah.
Oh, she just went up on a trajectory like this. Yeah. What the hell's going on? She's fucking got her own show now. Awesome, yeah. You had Aussie Cozak, who's I think he's hauled up in a consulate, like fuck you. I can't believe where some of these things have gone, and there's other people out there.
Yeah, many. You've got the ex-candidates too. They've been doing some great stuff.
So I just jumped into that podcast today, so I found them today, so I started listening more. I actually lost my train of thought, but luckily I have notes for the first time. So as you guys were discussing on those little panels and shows and whatnot, you were talking about how in your case you went and you went all the way back in time to like pretty much like to the beginning of law, and you made mention of the Magna Carta and these documents and whatnot. Now, I would like to know a little bit about this, and I'm pretty sure there's Nick. Have you ever heard about this? No, he's never heard about this. So you got two people that will just listen, because there's no one else going to be listening to this podcast, mate. So please tell us about this Magna Carta document and just this beginning of time law. Like, why is that so important?
Well, the Magna Carta is a symbolic document that, see, at the time you had barons and kings. So kings, you had barons, and barons were like, wealthy landowners, and under the wealthy landowners you had common people who would do the farming and, that sort of stuff. And at the time, there were taxes that were being increased, and people were becoming more and more unruly and testing out the kings at the time.
Okay.
And the barons said, how do we bring some equality into society, because we're feeling it too. The king's asking us for more and more taxes, and if you remember at the time, in and around, because there was a couple hundred years of this, it didn't happen in 50 years. It happened over a couple hundred years. But the Magna Carta changed a few times, and the Crusades. Okay,
yes,
so you had the Crusades.
So we're going back to then 1600s.
Oh yeah. Well, the Magna Carta's 1215.
Oh, so 1215.
Yeah,
yes,
the Magna Carta's 1215.
Yes, 1215.
But in that time, you see, there's all these little wars going on between countries and things like, even internally. And so kings had to raise taxes to fight, build weapons and things, this sort of stuff. So at the time, taxes were increasing. People were becoming uneasy with things, and they started challenging. So the Magna Carta was written to balance out. It was like a civil bill of rights almost, if you want to call it that. It was like a civil bill of rights.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so when that occurred, you actually found that the kings were actually, that was like the first instrument of a measure of a constitution.
Okay.
That was like the first sort of relic of a constitution, what a constitution would look like. And so the Magna Carta was developed, and that pretty well held the kings to say, right, I'm also responsible. I can't just give an order. I'm also responsible for things. Like, I can give the order, but people also can look at me and convict me for something or accuse me.
I see where this is going, okay? Yes.
All right, so first measure of a constitution. And to give you a little bit of reflection of that, the American Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they're not modelled on the Magna Carta, but there are elements of the Magna Carta that find themselves in the Bill of Rights, the US Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Okay, so when you hear of civil rights and human rights, the Magna Carta would perhaps be one of the founding documents to say that the common person, us, okay, yeah, you got your government and your rulers, but they also have rights. And when you look at a lot of constitutions around the world, the European, Australian, and this and that, well, the Australian, the US, Chapter 3 governs the judiciary in both. They're almost cut and paste.
Yeah.
It's almost a cut and paste from both sides. But the point I'm trying to make here is constitutions around the world, just as in the Magna Carta, allowed people to have rights. That was the first imparting of those rights through society. But then when that happened, when the constitutions were developed further and further, if you actually break it down, the constitution is there to shackle, okay, to hold the government down and say, you've got power, but you don't have unlimited power.
Understood.
And you need to look after the people. And the people, the rule of law, okay? So if you do wrong, you're also responsible, not just us. You can't hold us accountable for something and you're not. And this is where we're at now. We're starting to see government being questioned. We're starting to see institutions being questioned. Where does it come from? Well, it comes from the Magna Carta, but it's the tradition of the Magna Carta, because back then, remember one thing, they didn't have schools, universities and things like that back then. They had common people out there with a pick and a hoe and this and just working. They worked out back then that there was something wrong. We have societies now, highly educated, and they're just letting this stuff go.
Indoctrinated.
Yes. So there's something else going on.
Yeah.
Okay. And so whenever you hear me talk about, shackle the power of government, I'm talking about a constitution.
Yeah.
So language such as, shall be absolute. Well, if something's absolute, you can't say but. It's absolute.
Yeah.
You can't say, "Oh, mate, you've got the right. You've got an absolute right to do something. Absolute, the term absolute, but no. If it says you have absolute free speech or absolute this or absolute, it is absolute. There is no buts, ifs, maybes. It is absolute. And we've seen a watering down of all this through society. So now people are starting to get, well, let's say, pissed off.
I got that. So pretty much coming back to this document, was that document ever annulled? Was it ever thrown out and saying, no, this is nothing to do with it? Like when you look
it's been amended.
It's been amended?
Yeah. It was amended 3 times. I think it was 12, 16, and I don't know the exact dates, but, over a course of a few years. It sort of, they had like 63 or 64, geez, it's a long time now since, it was 63 or 64 clauses, but then it came back to about 42, and then it got changed again. But since then, you've seen a lot of countries like Europe, America, and Australia actually has it in Parliament, a copy of the Magna Carta in Parliament. So we all sort of use that as a foundational sort of document that a lot of people moved off.
Yes,
so, yeah.
But it's interpreted. Each country will now interpret in whichever way they need to or want to, and governing
but the crucial part about it is you got to take it back to its roots, which is it gave people rights.
And that's what you tried to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say try. Actually, that's what you did.
We're still doing it now.
Yes.
So we're still fighting for rights now.
Yeah.
When someone says, but I'm only just this person. No, you mean something to me. You mean something to me. They might want to tread on you and go over you, but you mean something to somebody.
Yeah.
And it means something to us. And so when we go into bat and, whether it was a fine for not wearing a mask or whether it was a fine for attending a protest, and we won most of those.
Yes.
Nearly, as a matter of fact, I think we won all of them, okay? But you didn't hear about it.
No, of course
and
not.
we didn't come out about it.
Yeah.
But because we felt that person felt insignificant. They said, who am I to take on the government, the police? Well, no, we'll stand with you.
Yeah, I got you.
We'll stand with you. And when I looked around, like I was saying, then we started getting the community coming in.
Yeah.
And they're going, oh, good on you, man. And that's what we were building, that sense of community and camaraderie. And now it's exploding. It's absolutely exploding. I'm loving it.
Yeah, good. So business is still booming?
Oh, yeah, well, remember, that's, yes and no, because what a lot of people don't understand, I actually put my money into a lot of these cases.
I can believe that, yes.
Yeah, I put my money in. And I did a lot of pro bono work. So when you do pro bono, you work for free.
Yes.
Okay? And you don't only work for free. I work for free, but I pay people too, wages.
Yes.
And they, you got to pay their wages. What else do you pay? Taxes, massive taxes. You got wage tax. You got the, and so I did a lot of pro bono work out there. And when the floods hit up north in, remember Lismore, Coracai.
Yep.
Well, I went up there and I put more money into that, and not only that, but I was also set up a little service there with the Australian military. So I was doing the logistics, and the Australian military was coming in, bringing in stuff, and I was the one doing the legal stuff and helping. Oh, okay, you go to the Centrelink. Here's the Centrelink over here. I stayed there for 11 days. I didn't charge anyone for it. Do you know what I mean? I did a lot of this stuff, and then you had Graham Hood.
Yes, he was the Qantas pilot.
Yeah, Hoodie's Heroes. You had John Larder up there. You had Roland Crystal, 32-year senior constable, Highway Patrol. You had many other Australians out there, ex-military.
Yes.
Mate, the camaraderie you see. You know who was there last? The government. And this is the most sickening part about it, is after 11 days, when the government came there and all the waters have subsided and everything, we were based out of the Coracai fire station. They came in, they said, all unvaccinated out of the fire station. But we've just done your job, your emergency services job, mate. We were going in dinghies up and down the river, getting people, taking food to people. This is what we were doing. We were taking four-wheel drives across country, giving people, we were taking food into old ladies' houses that didn't have it. And they weren't there. But when they did come, they said all unvaccinated. It was only the unvaccinated that were doing this.
You know what the funny thing is? Like what you were doing, that's the Australian spirit. That's the Aussie spirit. All that other stuff that you said afterwards with the government, that's not Aussie spirit.
No.
So really put your head, so whoever, just put your heads in, yeah?
Yeah.
So the Aussie spirit is to help your mates and to all be together. And we can't forget that. So well done. That's great.
If I could just say one thing.
Of course you can.
There were some young girls.
Freedom of speech, mate.
Nah, that's good. I'll tell you, there were some young girls from the university in the Gold Coast, I believe, and they came down, mate. They were carrying big, because, houses from the floods, they were all wrecked. Mate, you'd see 4 or 5 girls carrying these big lumps of, like rafters, house rafters.
Yep.
They had gumboots on. You had tourists from Brazil driving from South Australia. Driving into Coracai, northern New South Wales. We had Japanese people. I've got some photos with Japanese people who were cooking rice and making their dishes to give to the people working on the streets. They were walking up. So they were paying from their pockets to feed these people. And also the Australian military, I think it was the 9 RAR, 9 Royal Australian Regiment. They were lovely. They were great. They started with a small team. We were there before them.
Yeah.
But they started with a small team. There were only 2 police officers. Couldn't hardly see them. There were a couple firefighters around. But yeah, we were there right at the start. And you got to give, you nailed it. The Australian spirit came out there. And there was a really funny time there where an old guy collapsed, and myself and Roland Crystal, he was former Highway Patrol.
All right.
And we were driving my big 4-wheel drive that you see out there.
Yeah.
And
I almost got blinded before. Fucking, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a massive thing. But he and I were driving around. I think we were in Woodburn. Yeah. No, it was Coracai. No, it was Woodburn. Yeah, we're in Woodburn, and we were driving around, just sort of lending help wherever we could. And there was an old couple. They were in their 80s or something, and the guy collapsed. But he had collapsed when we went down the road a little bit, and then we hear these people calling out, come back, because they knew, ex-police and, myself, we were there.
Yeah.
I ran up to this tradesman's car, the van, the tradie's van, and I grabbed his defibrillator because we heard he had a heart attack, this old guy, because it was like 34, 35 degrees, very hot, steamy water coming, evaporating. And this guy had collapsed, and, there was a lifesaver from Bondi who got there first.
Yeah.
To this guy on the ground from Bondi, okay? And there was a nurse, a cardiac nurse who worked in Lismore or one of those places. She got there, and they're all yelling, come back, come back. And so I grabbed this guy's defibrillator out of his thing, and he's working on a house to restore electricity. I rip out his defibrillator. He thinks I'm stealing it. We take off. And Roland Crystal, Highway Patrol 30 years, great driver. Like he's in reverse in this big 4-wheel drive. Mate, we're doing like 80, 90 Ks in reverse. I've got this guy's defibrillator in my hand. I see this tradie running after us. I think he's trying to get and ring the cop, and nothing's happening. He's must really thinking we've ripped him off.
Yeah, fair enough.
We've ripped off his thing, and he sees, and we stop at this thing. And we still see him. Now he's gone back to his car. He's got in his van.
Fuck,
it's like a high-speed pursuit
man.
going down this street in Woodburn. And we run into this house, and we see this old guy laying on the ground. He was in a bad way.
Fuck.
But he didn't have a heart attack, which was good. I got this defibrillator in my hand. And the guy comes in. He's like, oh, you guys. And then he's seen what we did. And I said, mate, here, you can have your...
I'll bring it back to you, I promise.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
And we had a cardiac nurse, and everyone's seen what we were doing. He goes, mate, I'm sorry, I didn't realise this. I said, mate, we're not here, And, so that was a bit of a funny take on, we're trying to save someone's life and we're being chased by this tradie in northern New South Wales. But we kind of still laugh about that to this day. But that's the kind of spirit we had up there. That's the spirit.
Stories like this as well that you can remember, make you laugh, but also that is the Australian spirit, man. That's why I love this country.
Yeah.
It's moments like that people get together, put all differences aside, and we're there to back each other.
Yes. And
whatever happened during the last couple of years, was fucking 5 years actually now, since 2019, all of us were put into an extreme, like a pressure cooker, into a hard situation. And ultimately, you still see good things happening.
Yeah.
and that we should just never lose that. Hopefully we never lose that, but really it's a beautiful country to live in. That's why when people start to get really upset and are bagging out Australia during that time, it's like, don't go that far. Because, I'm still proud to be Australian.
Absolutely.
That Anzac spirit really lives in everybody here.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think you've just hit on something really big there, which is, no matter what happens, tomorrow if Australia was to go to war, I don't know what I could do, but I want to sit there with my brothers and sisters. I want to go right there and I want to fight for this country. I will do whatever I can to help this country. I may not agree with everything it does.
Of course.
I agree with a lot of things it does do. I don't agree with some decisions I get, and I agree with decisions.
Well, we still had rules and bounds that we had to operate in as well. Yeah. And one thing that I remember was you were a big advocate of supporting police.
Yeah.
Everyone had a job to do, so you guys just let them do their job. Especially like if you were going outside and potentially being questioned. One thing I remember you were saying, just fucking answer the question. Don't play hard. Just respect the police. It's hard enough on them as well. You did find that there was some that were overstepping, but there was a lot of them that were doing their jobs, and that's one thing that you always advocated, that made me proud to see and made me happy to see that.
I think it was incumbent upon us to do that, wasn't it? Because I know from working in and around them, and a lot of our mates at police, former police, like Roland Crystal, Stephen Kelly, these kind of guys. Justin Paul, who played State of Origin for New South Wales, he was on a current affair only a couple of weeks ago. He lost his job because of he didn't want to take the jab, and he was on a current affair only recently. And there are many others who left the force. There are Australian Federal Police. There were police from Victoria.
They never talked about this.
That's right. At all. And they didn't want this.
No.
And I can tell you now, a lot of the guys who stayed on the force didn't want to see this either.
I understand that too, yeah.
They didn't want to see this. And so what was actually occurring was these guys, they're trying to do their job and they couldn't. But you're right, there were some who were overstepping, and they're the ones we were looking for. We knew that 90%, 95% were great people, great family, but they didn't like the situation either. You know what I mean? And you had a couple who were overstepping and becoming abusive, and they're the ones that they should not wear a uniform. Unequivocally, they just shouldn't be there. If you don't respect your uniform and you don't respect your people, then you don't respect the institute that should be representing the people. And that's that simple, okay? If you do wrong, the police officer, if he asks you, but they were given orders, ask for this, ask for that, that's what I was telling everyone. Give it to them, because all they're going to do is they're looking for an excuse to get you.
I understand that.
And they were the overzealous type ones. They're the ones, I still don't like them in our police force. I don't like.
No, fair enough.
I don't like them holding, guns or uniforms. I don't think they've got a place for us here.
No, definitely. That's fair enough, and I understand and agree with that. There's a couple other things here. So you also you ran. What was it? You ran for the House of Representatives, or what did you? Yep. So. Yep. The camera, the people. There we go. Nicky's that on the camera there. There he is. He ran. So this guy's a politician. No, he didn't make it.
No, he didn't.
That's a nice photo, mate. A bit of Photoshop going on there.
Bit of a tan
There's
going.
a couple of staples in there as well.
Was that on a telegraph pole?
Yeah, it was on a telegraph pole. I had to jump up to grab that one. So what happened there? So that's United Australia Party. So that's Clive Palmer, I think he might have been one of Australia's richest men. He's a billionaire. He's up there.
Yeah.
Do you know Clive personally, or?
Yeah.
I've never met him before. I'd like to meet him, so we'll get him on the podcast one day. But how is he as a bloke?
I haven't spoken to him. I think it's been 2 years since. Clive's a very, very sort of focused sort of business individual.
Yep.
He's, time's limited. And,
fair enough.
He does what he does. Craig Kelly was there recently, and now he's gone over to One Nation.
Is Craig Kelly at One Nation now?
Yeah, he moved over. Yeah, I don't know. Do we call it a defection? Do we call it a moving? I don't know. I don't know their inner workings.
It's politics, mate. We don't get too involved.
Yeah.
We're not politicians.
It's like, politics and electricity, they'll both burn you if you touch the wrong one.
Yeah, fair enough. Because in the last election, I voted voted. So I was voting for One Nation, Great Australia Party with Rod Culloden.
Yep.
I find him amazing. And also ULP, so whoever was in which, not Labor and all the other guys. I'm not going to say which preferences, but these are the main people the main parties I was voting for.
Parties, I think
Yeah, so you got the likes of Senator Malcolm Roberts.
Yes, great guy.
Fuck.
Yeah, he's a great
That's
guy.
all I can say about him. It's just four letters. Fuck. He's so good.
He's a lovely guy.
He is. And Pauline Hanson did a fantastic job as well. And then you have Senator Antich, one of us.
Yes.
And then there's also Rennick as well. So there was bits and pieces of everyone everywhere.
Matt Canavan.
Yes, Matt Canavan, yes.
Russell Broadbent.
No, doesn't ring a bell.
No, does it? Yeah, well,
maybe I got to.
Yeah. He's done a lot of work in this area. Again, there's a lot of these ones that we're not seeing that have been doing it.
Yeah.
And you got to give a big shout out. Like I know, to each and every one of those ones that you've just mentioned. And I know here in New South Wales we've got John Ruddick.
Yes, John Ruddick, yes.
Yeah, you've also got John Ruddick.
Not young liberals, something liberals.
Libertarians. They used to be the Liberal Democrats.
That's the one, Liberal Democrats.
Liberal Democrats. So you've got John Ruddick, and you've got their One Nation here in New South Wales. I think, what was his name? Mark Latham was doing some work for the educators.
I remember him.
At one point.
He's a man from Liverpool.
Yes, that Werriwa.
Yes.
I started my campaign really late. I didn't campaign. I still nearly got 10% of the vote.
You got 10% of the vote?
Yeah, 9.8.
That's not bad.
Yeah, 9.89.
That's all right. That's more than what I get in podcast views.
Yeah.
10% of just my street, mate.
Oh, really?
You know?
Yeah, no.
No, I don't know.
You might want to whack it on my one of my Instagrams or something, but it might go all right. But,
we'll see how it goes, buddy. Yeah. I'm all right. I'm happy enough as long as my mother watches it. I don't think she's watched an episode yet. But the reason why I brought up a bit of politics, so you've done that, so it was good to see that, and there was that not one chance, but it was a big movement, because we always have chances after. It was a big movement to start showing these guys that I wanted to change at the election, and it went a completely different ways. But anyways, this is not a political podcast, so I can't be bothered getting into that. But so you got 10% of the vote. That's actually pretty impressive.
Pretty close, very close. I did pass it at one stage, but then it got sort of rounded down. So
that's okay. Yeah, that's all right. They probably stole a couple of votes from you or something.
I should have done a Trump thing. Yeah. Release the Kraken.
Oh my God! Imagine you did that. Imagine you fucking did that.
Release the It's a fraud.
It's a fraud. Yeah,
it is what it is. So.
Oh, that American election is an interesting.
Well, here
one.
it comes again. So,
yeah.
That's going to be another.
You know what? We're not out of the woods yet. So what happened? There's more coming, and I'm not saying in relation to pandemics and whatnot, but I'm saying there's other things in the workings, and you've made posts about this, and Senator Malcolm Roberts is very big and he's going hard on this at the moment. The digital ID bill.
Yes.
That's the next thing there. And so are you well versed in this?
Oh yeah, if you go to my website, I've been writing about this for some time now.
So what are your thoughts?
Diabolical.
Yeah.
Diabolical digital ID. Where do you start? It's one of the things. So and if you go to my website, aflsolicitors.com.au, you'll actually see submissions. I actually write about it. I've actually been on Sky News and all this sort of stuff. So it's not something that I just come out and talk about. I've been writing about it for some time. I also speak about the fact that one of the key features on the digital ID is this, and this is something that people aren't realising, is it's dangerous.
Yes.
Okay, it's dangerous, and the reason it's dangerous, or one of the reasons, is because one, it's an encroachment on your privacy and civil liberties and all this sort of stuff, because now you're having to give away data. Again, this is another one of those vaccine things. This is why people don't understand the significance of the choice of vaccine not being coerced upon you. You don't need to take it, right? Just like you don't need the digital ID. But if you don't, you can't participate.
I understand.
So it is coercion. Okay, so that's one thing there. And the other thing is this, the digital ID, everyone that's got these iPhones and Samsungs and whatever they've got, you got your fingerprint.
I haven't done that yet, man.
I don't use the fingerprint.
I refuse to.
But you've got your fingerprint. Notwithstanding, you've got other important data on there. So your PIN numbers,
I've got everything
special
on there.
passwords. Right? Am I right? Yeah. But here's a key feature: you got your fingerprint, and your face.
Yeah.
let me tell you something. Once you've lost those two things,
Yeah.
you're never getting them back. And
Yeah.
I know from my view in, where I used to work in criminology, they're features. You can't change. You can't. Your password goes missing. You change your password.
Yep.
Okay, you put the dollar sign where the hashtag is, or a star, or this, or a percentage sign. You can change things. You can't change your face. You can't change your fingerprint. Once it's gone, and it goes on the dark web. It gets sold. Bang, something happens. Okay, all right. Now, and again, we're going to tie into some criminology. It sounds very sinister, and I'm going to give you a catastrophic type example. Okay.
Okay.
I haven't seen it happen, but it can happen. Let's say your facial recognition is taken, okay? It's gone, okay? With the advent of AI and all this sort of stuff, okay? Something happens, a crime occurs, you can superimpose your face on someone now, okay? Someone comes walking, robbing a 7-Eleven, your face gets superimposed, it's been stolen, done, you were the crime. How do you get out of that? You're not going to. You lose all your money out of the bank.
Yep.
Well, you logged in. Well, it's not me. No, it's your face. But I can't change it.
But that's why they're going to say the digital ID will help stop all of this.
No, but it's going to create more because now let's look at it from a legal perspective. The legal perspective is this, and again, this is also happening. Again, whether you're looking at pharmaceutical devices, medications, vaccine, whatever it is, the propensity of the Australian judiciary here, and I'm not blaming them from a conspiratorial or critique or anything like that, is that, and I wrote an article in The Spectator about it, is the burden of proof has been switched. So the burden of proof is basically if you do something, the burden of proving you're innocent or guilt,
Yes, okay.
lays on one or the other party. So the classic example is if I do look at, say, a medication, here in Australia, what they've done is that burden is switched. And they did it in robo-debt as well.
Yes.
So it's not just this, it happens everywhere. So the issue is, rather than a manufacturer proving that medication is safe, which is what they should be doing, they've turned it and they swifted it around. So now you got to prove as a consumer that the medication is dangerous. You're taking on a multi-billion and perhaps trillion-dollar company as a normal person who's struggling week to week to prove that their medication is dangerous. They should be proving it's safe, and that's the problem. And so that's what's going to happen here with the digital ID as well. Let's say your ID gets stolen. Okay, it is stolen, it goes. How do you now try and convince these multi-million, billion-dollar banks that it's your product that allowed this to occur? They're going to say, no, you had poor security on your phone.
Yeah.
Now you prove that your security is better than our security. You're gone. I'll tell you now, you're gone. Okay? And they're going to say, they're going to try and impose all this stuff on us.
Yep.
Okay? That's the problem.
Do you still use cash?
Absolutely.
Do you have cash in your wallet? That's it. Good. Fucking hope that all you guys watching have cash in. We're going out tonight.
Did you want 62 schooners?
Fucking this guy's going to buy more than 62 schooners. I started recently because I was just easier to pay with the card and I was hoarding cash for a rainy day. But I started paying cash again and it just feels good. But people look at you like, oh, what the fuck? Straight away the card's ready for you to pay. So it's all gone digital.
Yeah.
You know, and just paying cash again. And it's good to see people starting to get that back into the system because can you imagine in that 5 kilometre rule what would have happened? Because there were people going further than 5 kilometres. Imagine your vehicle doesn't work past that point, it's electric. Can you imagine that your card doesn't work past that 5 kilometres? Then people really would have felt even more.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this is a package deal, right? This is a package deal.
Yes.
If you really want to read something good, read Michel Foucault. He was a philosopher, Michel Foucault.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the spelling later.
That's all right.
Foucault.
I wrote Michel, fuck you.
Yeah. Michel Foucault.
Foucault.
And what you want to read?
Michel Foucault.
Foucault. I think he died in the late 70s or something like that. But he wrote on the. It's called a Panopticon.
Panoptic. I think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, the Panopticon. Just look at it on Google or one of those. The Panopticon. You don't have to read the whole book because those philosophers of that time. You read, and you got to go back and you got to read that page again, and you do that for 300 pages. Well, you'll be 62 before you finish it. You know what I mean? But go to what do you call it? Wikipedia.
And someone will break it down for you.
It'll break it down in a nice, digestible, easy way. But essentially, the Panopticon is it's like a jail. It's based on a jail.
I've heard of this. Yes.
Where you got the central pier in the middle.
Yep.
And this is how the jails used to be built. And then it's like a star pattern.
Yes.
And they're the wings.
Yes.
But in the middle is the person who's looking at everything. And they get a view of everything, and we're living in the Panopticon. Okay, so in the middle you have a central pier control. This is where all the gates open. These people let you out, let you in, tell you when you're going to eat, turn the electricity on, turn the electricity off. The Panopticon, and it's a metaphor for where it's going to head. So he spoke about that sort of stuff, and it's very intriguing because that's what we're seeing now. Because they're controlling a lot of this sort of stuff. And that's when I talk about a package deal. You got the censorship.
Yep.
Okay, that's all tied into all this.
Yes, it is.
You've got your digital ID.
Yes.
You've got a bureaucratic medical system.
Yes.
You've got you've got a medical industrial complex, military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex.
Yes.
Okay, and what we're seeing now is the taxpayers actually imprisoning themselves.
Yes.
Okay, so it's ever-encompassing. And so when the censorship bill comes in, when you complain, the only people that can complain are those who are certified by the government. Therefore, you have a state-run media, and that state-run media is going to distribute what information they believe the public needs to hear. There's your propaganda, and there's your and there's everything else associated to it.
It just keeps on building and building and building, and that's why I said just watch, just keep on watching to see what we're going to.
Yeah, it's not cooker and it's not tinfoil stuff.
No more conspiracies. It's there.
It's
there.
literally happening.
So the amount of times I've been called a conspiracy theorist, whatever. I'm not changing. I'm not changing who I am. I'll always question. It's in my blood. I'm Serbian, for fuck's sake. I've got to question.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you got the WEF Agenda 2030. So it's all heading there. But I feel that as a people, I think we'll make it. I think we'll be all right. I deep down believe that we'll be all right, and then something good will happen, and we'll see what's going to happen there.
Have faith.
Yeah. Faith's a big thing, Nick.
Yeah,
Tony, sorry, not Nick.
Tony.
Tony.
That's okay. And I understand. But from early on, I always said faith, love, and hope, and they're three of the 7 tenets of religion. I don't care what religion it is, because they all have elements of these. Compassion, moderation, courage. So they're all parts of religion. That's why Western Sydney was smashed. Because you know what? That's your religious belt. Whether it was Christianity, Judaism, yes, slightly, perhaps in the eastern suburbs a little bit more, but you also had Islam and all this. This is where the centre of religion is. Yeah. And I called it, and for lack of a better term, I call it the religious belt.
Yes, okay.
For Sydney.
Yep.
And that's why they attacked it. And I don't know if you know, but early on, before Kassam, I ran a case to open the churches and the synagogues.
I remember that a little bit there, but not too much. I read it retrospectively after.
Yeah. So again, we lost the case, but we won the war.
Yeah.
We won. Okay, so we lost the battle, but we won the war because 2 days after the case, Gladys Berejiklian allowed the vaccinated to go back to church. There was nothing even on the horizon about this. Nothing. So now you could go to your synagogue, your church, your mosque. People didn't realise you couldn't do any of this. And then we ran the case, and we, like I always do, at the end of the day, what we were doing was exposing them.
Yes.
And we were subpoenaing them, and they didn't want that to occur. We were subpoenaing their documents. And so now it was diabolical. It was diabolical what they were doing, because what they were actually saying was you couldn't go to church and sit next to someone, or a synagogue, or your mosque or temple, but you could go to a brothel.
Yes.
Okay, you could do that. Okay, this was diabolical. You could go and buy alcohol and do all this stuff. I don't care if you drink. I don't mind the odd wine myself, but there were these very, very significant inconsistencies, and we actually applied for exemptions that a lot of people don't realise, and they were doing sermons over the radio, so you're not even in physical contact.
Yeah.
And cars were parked in the car park, so you had a car park spot that was blank, another car, a car park spot that was blank, a car and a car park spot that was blank. So you had a car.
Yep.
You're more than 1.5 metres away, aren't you? And you're in your own car, and you're listening to it on the radio. Well, that exemption was refused.
You can't get safer than that, mate.
Can you? That's my point. They were refused. So it had nothing to do with safety. It had to do with breaking down the fabric of society.
And breaking down the family unit, and also breaking down your faith.
That's
and attacking
exactly
churches,
right.
you know.
That's why I went after it.
Yeah, there wasn't many. I don't remember seeing many religious figures during that time fighting back. There was, I think, the Assyrian church.
Murray.
Yeah, I remember I was watching his sermons. Whether you call them sermons or not, I was watching him on Facebook Live, Instagram Live there, and he was going hard, and I really enjoyed listening to that. But a lot of the other places.
Yeah. Another one I can tell, Chris Atavle. He was a Baptist priest, or father, or from Smithfield, and then there were some other Baptist churches from around the country who were in there. You had some rabbis, from Melbourne, Sydney. I was representing a lot of them, and the Serbian church at Western Sydney.
In Cabramatta?
Is it? Yeah.
There's one. There's St George at Cabramatta.
Yeah, is it?
Or there's one there. There's a couple.
Yeah, but there was a big one there, and I went and sat with him and met him and spoke to him, mate. They were absolutely incredible. So courageous, very brave.
They're figures of God, mate. They have to be.
And he said, "There's no way we were going to follow that." He said.
Yeah.
And here's another one. The Croatian church.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went there and I sat with them. And so here I am sitting with all these religious figures during the heart of lockdown because I could. And I was talking because they were literally clients.
Yep.
Okay. And the courage coming from most of these people, I'm telling you, mate, they're going, no way. And now some of those priests, I know the Croatian priest was sent away because they said, mate, you're not following our... And he goes... That was him. When I sat with the Serbian people, they invited me for lunch, and I sat down with them, and we spoke, and their courage was absolutely amazing, and I mean effing amazing. God bless each and every one of those people, because every one of them, the rabbis, the Baptists, and then. But when we looked at the bigger side of the Catholic institution and some of the other institutions, they didn't stand up at all.
No.
And that disappointed me.
Yeah, that is quite disappointing, and I noticed that, and that was, again, it just shows all the cogs in the wheel and what was going on. But how do you have someone that wants to hold a sermon, hold a religious event, prayer, and checking who's jabbed, who's unjabbed? Someone needs God, they need God, mate. You'd think that the unvaccinated...
God's got nothing to do with it.
You think the unvaccinated need God more.
God had nothing to do with it. Divine intervention wasn't going to stop you, and divine intervention wasn't going to impede upon you, because anyone that knows anything about the religion, remember, irrespective of which one it was, they all preach tolerance, right? And whether you look... Let's just take the example of the Bible. Well... was it 10 lepers came down from the mountain? And Jesus didn't say, oh, get away from me, you're unvaccinated, or you've got leprosy. I don't want to talk to you.
Imagine that new amendment comes out. So just imagine they come out with a new version of the Bible that says, and he pushed forward and pushed away the unvaccinated and kept on his path. You don't know. No, maybe we turn around in 50 years and say, where the fuck did this book come from, you know? So it's an interesting time that we live in. I feel like we've gone deep, and I believe that I've gotten what I've wanted out of this, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry, I talk a bit.
No, man. We can talk more, but I just feel like we can always leave it for another time.
I'll leave that in your hands, guys.
But the thing is, so talking about everything that we've discussed, everything that we've been through, just a little bit of advice. Let's say we haven't gone down the usual path that I do about talking about someone's life story and going in and the psychology of that. This has been a completely different thing. But if you could give, actually, you can't even say this because I'm gonna ask you, if you were to give a bit of advice to people that really need it, what would you say? But you've been saying it the whole time. So, but anyways, if you could give a little bit of advice to people that needed it, especially like what do you feel people needed to hear during that time? Like if you could just say it so that it could just get drummed into people's heads again, and not drummed into people's heads, like it'll get drummed into the people's heads that needs to be drummed. And there's other people that might need a bit of encouragement or something. Do you have a little bit of advice to help people get through hard times, knowing what we've been through and what we're going towards?
Yeah, sure. There's a few, and I'll be very brief on this, but there are a few elements to that. One is...
Take your time. It's all right.
Yeah, so I just spoke about a few of them there, which was courage, moderation, faith, love, and hope.
Yep.
Okay. When you've got those ingredients, the intestinal fortitude of principle comes within you, and you do have the capacity to stand up. And what we've been conditioned to do is to see ourselves that if you don't like me, or if you don't like me, then I must be bad. No, because the theory of deviance, okay, and we're going into sociology and criminology here, the theory of deviance doesn't mean you're a bad person. A deviant is someone as simple as walking into an elevator. So you walk into your elevator. What do? You walk in. Where's everyone facing the door? Why don't you face the other way? Why don't you face the back? You're a deviant. You're doing something no one else is doing. Yeah. Does that make you a bad person?
No.
No, it doesn't.
No.
And so when someone calls you out and says, hey, why aren't you, like, what was his name, Koshi, saying, get the unvaccinated people, get them out, get your family members out. That was the most disgusting, un-Australian. He needs to be called out. He needs to be stopped because that was ridiculous. Having a person who calls himself an Australian media personality coming out telling him to reject your own family members based on a health decision they are making on their own basis, that is disgusting. It is un-Australian. And you know what? He should have been sacked right there and then, okay?
He eventually quit.
Well, I hope for good reason. But the point is, when you have those and you've got conviction, you need conviction. You need to be able to say to yourself, well, I believe. Does it matter that you believe? No, I believe in myself.
Yeah.
And when you believe in yourself and you have that intestinal fortitude and courage to stand up and be that person you really are, because we all have that. We all got lion in us or lioness, every single one of us. But we don't look at it enough. And so when you got the faith, love, courage, hope, and moderation, you get to temper all that stuff and you put them all together and you get something. You get you. And all I ask people is just be you. If you see something and you think it's wrong, call it. Call it. Stand up. Well, no. Oh, but that's not scientific and that's missing. Well, no, it's not. Because this is my belief. As long as you honestly believe that something is wrong and something is not good, call it out. Call it out, because you'll end up finding someone who'll come and back you. And that's what happened, for instance, some of the cases that we've discussed now with the churches, or the guy with the horse punch, or, other people with the pepper spraying at Seven Hills.
Oh, yep.
No one wanted to back them.
Yep. Or even the pepper spraying of the lady in Victoria.
Yeah, that the older lady, okay, and they said that we thought it was a man because it had a black...
Doesn't matter. It identifies as a female. Leave it alone. Leave her alone. Leave him, her alone. These are your rules. I don't know.
At the end of the day, that's exactly
right.
That
was disgusting, actually. That was... I watched... That was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was. And, look, at the end of the day, like I said, these are people who got up and they had that internal principle. You, everyone. We all got up and we said, hey, there's something wrong here, man. Come on, call it out. And... that movement is now starting to develop, and I'm starting to get, pretty famous figures starting to follow me, and they're going, mate, you were right. And I said, I didn't do it because I thought I was right. I stood up because that's what I think was the correct thing. The fact that it's ended up being that way, I kind of predicted it, but it was just in my heart that's what, and it was in your heart because you stood up, yeah? And it was in your heart.
Yeah.
And it was in so many other people's hearts.
There was discussion saying, oh, what happens if you lose your job? And I said, I won't work. I won't work. Okay. What happens if you lose your house? I'll live on the street. This is my words, what I said to somebody. oh, and they're like, what the hell? We can't believe it. I said, listen, I'll die and I'll go back to God.
Yeah.
I'll go back home. I'm okay with that. This is my choice and I'm doing this. Okay.
Good.
All right. And with my mother, the missus, everyone, we were all aligned. But at the end of the day, even if I had to stand alone, it was scary. It wasn't easy. It was fucking scary.
Absolutely.
But this is my choice and this is what I'm going to do. And if I have to die, I will die and go back. That's very extreme, but that's just the spirit that we have inside. And that's what we just call Serbian inat. That's the Serbian will. Go Google it, people. Serbian inat.
It is. You know? It's willpower. And it was that willpower. And that's the willpower you get. It doesn't, like, it's something you have.
Yes.
And now you either enhance it and embrace it, or you allow someone to break it down, which is what they were doing. They were saying, if you don't do this, you're going to make grandma sick, or you're going to. Well, you know, the 90-year-old neighbour, she wasn't vaccinated, and she was most probably she was walking further than I was.
My grandmother wasn't. She sadly passed away because she broke her leg and went to hospital. Infection, but she old school. No, I don't want this. Give me onions and garlic, and I'll be all right. God bless her soul. She was a beautiful lady, but no. But the thing is, at that time as well, it's not like I was going out saying I want to make all these people say, no, I was staying home. I didn't want. I had a garden. I'm in my garden. That's all right. This is a whole kerfuffle, but you're right about that. And your advice of be you, that's the most realist thing that anyone can. You're allowed to go against the grain. You're allowed to be different. You're pretty much.
I encourage it.
Yeah.
I encourage it.
You need to go have a 5-minute session with my mum. You go, it's all right. You can be you. You're allowed to be you. You know, she's always like, people put me down for being
God
me.
bless your mother.
Yeah.
Because she raised someone. All right. And I'm telling you, this is you now. This is you. You're you because of your mum and dad.
Yes.
Okay. I'm me because of the heritage my parents gave. And I remember before my mother passed away, she said to me, Tony, which is similar to, along the lines of what you said there, she said, Tony, you came with nothing. You're going to leave with nothing.
Yeah.
She goes, you're a lawyer, right? But being a lawyer, you can make money, or you can do what God asks you to do, which is also help people. That means that if you've got someone who's sick, help them. If you've got someone who's in jail, help them.
Yeah.
If you've got someone who's got some, health issues, mental health issues, help them. If you've got people that don't have money and they need something, help them. Because she said, you might not go to your grave as rich as your lawyer friends, but she goes, you're going to go with a fuller heart than all your lawyer friends.
Yep.
And she goes, they're going to go to the same spot as you, but you're going to go with a more enriched soul.
Yeah.
And she said, that's what God gives you.
That's such good advice. That is such good advice.
And she didn't. She passed away not long after that. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
No,
that's life.
That's it. And I carried that through.
Yeah.
And that's how I practice on a daily basis. So you'll see me pick up pro bono, but I'm very selective.
You know, I didn't get. So I said becoming a lawyer, but so what's your ultimate goal as a lawyer? I get from here listening to what you're saying is to help people. Ultimately, is to help people.
That's my job.
Yeah.
Just like a doctor.
Not everyone's job. Some lawyers are there to help corporations and whatnot.
Well, that's their job.
That's it. Yeah, fair enough. But yours is to help the Aussie battler.
Yeah. Look, I help some companies as well. I help them, but you'll see that I'm helping them with contracts. Like a building or a development contract or something like that. I don't necessarily agree with some of these law firms who go chasing government money, but again they need to survive. I also see it that way.
I understand. Fair enough.
So when they censor, when they engage and they and some of them are very active in this, and mate, don't get me wrong, they love what they're doing. They'll go out, they'll have a wine and cheese and crackers because they totally smashed an innocent person down to the ground. I don't like that.
No.
That to me is immoral, unethical and this and that, but
yeah.
That's their job, and I respect that, and it's my job to try and stop them from doing that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I do everything I can, but unfortunately we don't have the power they have. When I say that, the financial resource power, and that's something, if we're going to really turn things around, that's what we need to do. And when I say that, I've got a case here, Virgin. There's 9 Virgin applicants against Virgin Australia. I've got I had the Jetstar case that was 3 young Jetstar hostesses or stewardesses, and Qantas settled with them. I can't tell you what the settlement was.
Don't want to know.
But they came out and we put a decent case together for them, and they walked away.
God bless.
Okay.
God bless.
But you can chip away at these people.
And we should. Got to keep them honest.
Exactly right. And so we've got the Virgin case that's now running, but they run like all these other places where, you know, we're going up against multi-million-dollar companies, and these people are going to work, chipping in what they can for lawyers like us, for me to pay barristers and, you know, pay those little bits and pieces to go and get these people some justice.
Yeah.
So what we need to learn as a society too is get behind these people. They're 9, but... You know, what does it cost you for a cup of coffee? What, $5, $6 or whatever it is?
I don't drink the almond lattes with extra soy.
That. Caramel, my goodness.
No, just straight cappuccino, strong cap, $4.
Long black even.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is...
Short black.
What I'm saying is, see that couple bucks.
Yeah.
If everyone put in $2, $3, these guys would give Virgin the biggest challenge of their life.
Yeah, yeah.
The biggest... And that's just like, you know, a couple... And that's... We're not... Everyone knows, you know, look, I've put more money in to these cases than I've put out almost.
Fair, yeah.
Okay. I mean, you know, then I've got out of these cases. So people don't realise that. And, you know, that comes from where I'm from.
I understand that. And God bless you. And that's why I hope you'll reap whatever rewards and benefits you need to get and what the Almighty Father above will give. So God bless you. Really, this is... I've ticked something off my bucket list, you know. So it's been a pleasure to speak with you, to have you in my studio with my staff, Nick.
Oh, sorry. I made him an underling. I'm sorry, everyone.
No, he's number one. This guy's number one. He's
the
number
best
one.
studio I've seen.
This is honestly,
it's a cracker.
And you know what? For anyone that's honestly looking for a podcast studio, please do consider Better Media. Please do consider Nick. You come here, and the benefits that you get from here, it's not just a studio. There's so much more, and we'll discuss that another time, but check it out. Tony, so obviously people can find you you're obviously still practicing law. You're like the head honcho. You're delegating to other people. Like, and you deal with people's cases still. Like, you're contactable on the websites.
Yeah. AFLsolicitors.com.au, 029892 2298 is the office number. Yes, I do the cases. I usually got my hand in most of the cases. I know most of the cases. Like I said, I've got some pretty experienced lawyers, and they're really good at what they do. Like I said, I've got Stephen Kelly, former prosecutor of 28 years, sergeant. I don't have to do anything. That guy just knows. He knows his stuff.
So he's a good criminal attorney.
Oh yeah, criminal. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
oh,
we need his details, his numbers. We need to.
He's a cracker.
A couple of people have already hit me up. My phone's vibrating.
No, he's good, and I've got some other people. You know, I've got some people who are good at canon law. That's, you know, church-made law. Really good at that sort of stuff. You know, religious law. I've got people who are good at wills and estates. Family law.
Okay.
I've even got a master's in family dispute resolution. I've got a master's in commercial law. Honours degree in criminology, estates. I'm a notary. There's a lot of things we can do at the law firm.
Okay.
Nearly everything. It's
a one-stop shop.
Well, almost.
God bless you. I'll come and see you to do a will soon. But anyways, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
And thanks.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank
you, Nick. This is his studio. I'm his staff.
Thanks. And thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. There's a lot to say out there, and there's a lot to do, but I just think that if everyone does their own individual bit, we're all stronger.
We're all going to make it.
Yeah.
We're all going to make it.
Absolutely.
All right, no worries. Okay. Bye, everybody.